Making pinwheel block quilts is quick and easy, particularly if you have the right tools, like the twist and stitch ruler from June Tailor. Hi, I'm Jill Rupp, and I'm going to show you how to make this quilt plus several other projects using twist and stitch. Pinwheel quilts are comprised of two things: simple squares and border strips. The first thing you need to do is decide how big do you want that finished pinwheel square. In this quilt, it's 3.5 inches finished. So our instructions say for a 3.5 inch block, you need to start out by cutting 5-inch squares and 3-inch border pieces. The instructions will show you exactly what size squares to start out by cutting, depending on what size finished blocks you want, from 3.5 all the way up to 10.5 inch finished blocks. We also give you suggestions on what size blocks work with what size quilts, from crib all the way up to queen. So we give you great recommendations on block layout and sizing. Let's get started. I cut 5-inch squares because I want the 3.5 inch finished block. So the next step after you've cut your squares is to simply lay them all out like we're doing here. And then we're going to sew these together. We're going to cut our borders, add those on, and then we'll begin to see that pinwheel block come alive. So again, you just want to, we'll change this around a little bit like this, get all your squares, sew them together, and then you're going to sew on your border pieces. You can sew top and bottom, and then you're going to add your left and right so that you're finished at that point looks like this. All of your squares sewn together and your borders on all 4 sides. Now we're ready to start making our pinwheel. Now it's time to cut our pinwheel blocks out of our squares and borders. We're going to take our twist and stitch ruler, and wherever you see the X in the ruler, you're going to line that up with your seams. So here we're working up in the border square. I've got the 2 lines that crisscross on my seam lines. I make a cut at 3.5 and 3.5 because remember that's my finished square. Then I twist the ruler and I reline up my X on the other set of seam lines, and again I make my cut at 3.5 and 3.5. So let's take this block and set it out. We're always going to want to keep those blocks in order. Now we'll move on to the next block. I'm going to cut 4 total here so that you can see the whole process. Again, I cut in 3.5 and 3.5. I twist my ruler and I cut again in my 3.5 inch blocks, and you're going to see these pinwheels start to form right in front of your eyes. I'll give you a little tip on this ruler. If you want a really super easy way to get your rotary cutter blade started into the slot openings of this ruler, you just want to tilt it ever so slightly. That helps introduce it into the slot, and it keeps you absolutely square on as you cut. Now I'm twisting in the other direction. I'm lining up my X, and again I'm cutting in that 3.5 inch mark. There we go. And one last cut. I'll cut over here to show you. The X is lined up on my seam lines. I'm just tilting my blade ever so slightly to get it introduced into that slot opening, twisting the ruler. It's actually a lot of fun, and it's really easy to cut this out. And you should see a pinwheel beginning to form here. So let's put this block here. Now, when all 4 are together like this, you are beginning to see your pinwheel block form, and that's going to eventually expand out into your finished quilt. You can see as I'm cutting out my quilt, I have little squares that are left over. Save those because those can always be used for other blocks. Or if you are working with this ruler and you're making the largest size, the 10.5 inch size, the little squares that are left over will be perfect to make a little 3.5 inch finished block as well. So there'll be no waste using the twist and stitch ruler. The last step in the process is to sew all these blocks together, creating your pinwheels. That's what we've done here. And then all you need to do is add your binding and you're done. I wanted to show you 2 other things that are interesting to do with the twist and stitch ruler. You can actually make a border strip using the ruler. Again, we use that 3.5 inch finished block. And to make the border strip, you simply start out by sewing your 5-inch blocks together adding your border pieces and then cutting it out and sewing it together. So that can make a really nice border strip on the edge of a quilt, particularly if you used a larger block for the inside and then the smaller block for the outside. The other thing that I love, one of my favorite things, is this little 9-patch block using the twist and stitch ruler. So you can see in each one of these, this is a simple 9-patch block. It starts out like this. You need 4 squares plus again your border strips. You want to cut them out, sew them together. This works beautifully for table runners. So 4 block sizes, finish 3.5 up to 10.5. The twist and stitch ruler is the perfect solution to make this type of quilt. Easy and fun.